Hey everybody, and welcome to another Victoria 2 modding lesson on the Iron Workshop. In this lesson, we'll learn how to create new cultures in Victoria 2. Let's get started. Alright, so we have about 5 steps to create cultures in Victoria 2. The first step is to create the mod file. Now I have a separate video for that, so make sure to check that out. I will have a link to that in the upper right corner of the screen. So once you've done doing that, proceed to step number 2, creating the folder and file structure. Alright, in step number 2, we will create the folder and file structure, basically putting all the folders and files required for our mod to work. So let's get to it. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to open the Victoria 2 folder. And on top of that, I'm also going to open the mod folder inside of the Victoria 2 folder. So let's just drag this over here so we can see both folders. And inside of the Victoria 2 mod folder, I have my new mod that I created. I called it New Cultures. Your name might be different, but that doesn't really matter. So let's go into the folder of our new mod. And now we will be creating some folders. So the first folder that I need for our mod to work is the common folder. It's this one right over here. So I'm just going to recreate it inside of my mod. And I'll go into this folder. And from this folder, I will need a file called cultures. It's this one right over here. So I'm just going to copy it from the game and into my mod. Great. Now the next folder that we will need is the history folder. So I will recreate that in my mod as well. From the history folder, we will need the pops folder, this one. So I will create that one. And from here, we just need to choose which bookmark to copy. You can also copy both of them if you want to apply your new culture to both bookmarks. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I will only focus on this bookmark, but obviously you can just repeat this process when we get to it to do it for both of these. So let me just recreate this folder. 1836.1.1. And from here, we need to copy the file that will contain the provinces where our new culture needs to be in. Now, I don't want to do this right now because I do actually want to show you in the game how we can locate the correct file to use. So we will come back to this later, but it is important for us to have the folder structure for now. All right, let's go back to our root folder of our new mod. And I'll also go back to the Victoria 2 folder. And now the last folder that we need is the localization folder. So let us take this folder as well and recreate it inside of our mod. And from the localization folder, I'm going to copy one of these files. Now, to be safe, I'm just going to take the text file and I'm going to put it in here. And I will also change its name to New Culture. Just like that. You can call it anything else. Now, if you're a Hardtime 4 modder, you might ask, why is there no L_L_English? That is because things work a bit differently in Victoria. Paradox were a bit unorganized with how their localization files worked. So things are done here a bit differently than in Hardtime 4, but this should definitely work for you and for your new mod. Excellent, so we now have our file and folder structure. We can now proceed to step number 3, which is to edit our cultures file. In step number 3, we're going to be editing our cultures file. So let's go ahead and find this file. I'm going to open my mod, New Cultures. I will go to the common folder, Cultures. Now it's important that we understand what's going on in this file before we start editing it. And for that, we will also need to understand how cultures work in Victoria 2 as far as the game code. So cultures have a couple of definitions. First of all, you have categories of cultures. For example, in here you have Germanic. This is not a culture that actually exists in the game that you can interact with. There is no German culture or Germanic culture. There is North German, and there is South German, and there is Ashkenazi. And these are the subcultures that you are actually interacting with in the game. But these three subcultures are under this big category of Germanic. And this is done, for example, to create cultural unions. So Germany is a cultural union for the Germanic culture, just like Italy is a cultural union for the various Italian subcultures. So it will be up to you to decide if you're going to create a whole new culture category like Germanic, or if you're just going to create a subculture like North German or South German. So in this lesson, we will be creating a whole new category of a culture, just so that I can show you how to do that. But obviously you can limit the amount of change that you do, and you can just create a new subculture, which is obviously easier. Okay, so let's create a whole new culture category. So I'm going to copy this whole Germanic culture. Now to do that, I'm going to select everything like this, and notice that I'm selecting this from this opening bracket to this closing bracket. Now it's very important that you close your brackets. If your brackets are not properly closed, then the game might crash, your culture might not work, and you may encounter various other issues. To make sure that your brackets are closed, put the mouse cursor in here at the end of this opening bracket and make sure that it highlights in yellow like this. In other Notepad++ colors, it might look a bit different, but if it's not closed properly, then it will become red. So for example, if I were to remove this from here, you see that this bracket is now red, and that's not good. Every opening bracket needs to have a closing bracket. So let's close this bracket again, and as I said, I'm going to copy all of this and I'm just going to put it in here. All right, now I'm going to change the ID of this culture group, right? So I will rename it to Bikini Bottomers, just like that. Next we have leader. So what is leader? So leader is the type of portraits that your generals and admirals will have in the game. Now in this case it's European. You can actually create unique general and admiral portraits, and you will need to put them in a specific folder. But if you want to do that, you can find these images in Victoria 2, GFX, interface, leaders. So in here you see that it says African _ Admiral 0, Admiral 1, Admiral 2, and so on. So if, for example, in here I had something like SpongeBob, I would have to put SpongeBob _ Admiral 0 _ Admiral 1, and so on and so forth. And that will use those portraits for my new culture. Great. The next thing that we have here is the unit. So this is the unit sprites that you see on the map when they're fighting, right? And there are some categories which are very general, like this European GC in here. Some countries have very specific sprites. So for example, France has its own unique sprites, and you can actually find it in here by typing French. And you see that, sorry, in here, you see that they use something called French GC. Same thing goes for the British. If you want to change it, just go ahead and look for the culture in the game that has the sprites that you want your new culture to have, and just copy paste it to your new culture. All right, let's go back to our new culture. I will just leave these things as they are for now. Next, we have our subcultures. So I actually don't want to have 3 subcultures, so I'm going to remove these 2. And I will just make sure that all my brackets are closed. Great. And this North German culture, I'm just going to change to something like the sponges, like that. So we have inside of our Bikini Bottomers, one of the cultures that we have are sponges. Makes sense. Now, what is color? Color is the color that you will see when you switch to the culture's map mode. And it is also the color that is used in the various charts, in the pie charts in the game, when you're looking at provinces or when you're looking at your population screen, this is the color that will be used. And this color is in RGB, which means red, green, and blue. So you will need to type these 3 codes to change this color. Now you could go about this in a couple of ways. If there is another culture that you just want to copy its color, just make sure to find it in this file and apply the numbers accordingly. But you can also use a unique color. I'm going to use paint.net to locate the color that I want. I'm going to use this color wheel in here. Now, if you open paint.net and you don't actually see this color wheel, make sure to press here in the upper right corner of the screen, and that will make it appear. So let's just say that we want our new culture to have a yellow color, right? Because they are sponges. So I'm going to find yellow in here. I'm going to click on more. And in here I have the values for R, G, and B. So I'm just going to copy these numbers. So we need 255, right? That is the red. The G, the green, is 247 and B 104. Excellent. So now we have our colors set as well. Here we have first names and last names. Now obviously you can type a lot of names in here, as you can see. I'm just going to change it to Sponge, and the last name is going to be Bob. And that's it, right? So I'm not really going to put much of an effort in here, but obviously you're welcome to give your new culture a lot more names. So this is the tag under which this subculture can unify. Now, obviously it makes much more sense to have a union tag if you have a couple of cultures. We don't in this case, so I'm just going to remove this line. All right, so we have our new culture created, and it will actually already work in the game, but it will have a couple of issues like localization, which we're going to get to very soon. So let's see what's our next step. Our next step is to edit the pop history files. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so what we're going to do in this step is put our new culture in the game world, right? So that when we start the game, our culture is already present in the game. Now, you don't have to do this. You can actually, in a way, spawn your culture through events or decisions and things like that. But it is much easier to actually see if your mod works properly if your culture is already in the game and you can access it. So let's go ahead and edit our pop history files. First of all, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the history folder pops. And this is the bookmark that we're going to be focusing on. And as you can see right now, we don't have too much in here. So let me just open the Victoria 2 folder so that we can have it open. So if we take a look at the base game folder, we see that we have names of a lot of countries in here. And the next thing for you to decide is where you want your culture to be located in the game. So you can either open one of these files and just try to put it somewhere in here randomly, but it obviously makes sense if we actually understand what happens in here. Now this number in here is the province number, right? So this is the province that will have all of these pops. Now at the top here it says Brussels, so this is probably Brussels, and if we were to go down in here, we see that we have a couple of more provinces. This is, for example, is Antwerp and so on. But I actually want to show you how you can locate the exact province in the game that you want to put your new culture in. So I've opened Victoria 2 in here. Now your screen might go blank for a bit because it's working in sort of like a borderless mod, but not actually very well. And in here, I'm going to start the game. Let's just start as any country, doesn't really matter. And now let's say that I want my new culture to be present in Bermuda, right? So I want my new culture to be present in this province. So I don't know the province number. So let's go ahead and find that out. In order to find out the province number, I will need to open the console window. You can do that by pressing the tilde key on your keyboard. That's the key to the left of the number 1 key. So once you have the console open, you will need to type the following: prov ID, one word, and press enter. And what this will do is that it will show the province numbers in the tooltip when you hover your mouse over these provinces, right? So if I hover it over here, even if you hover over C provinces, it shows their ID, their number, right? So I know now that the province number for Bermuda is 203. So let's go ahead and find that in the files. So how can I do that? I can actually do it very easily by doing the following. I'm going to open this folder that contains all of the pop information, and I'm going to copy its path. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go right click, copy. Then I'm going to open in Notepad++ the search or the find window by clicking Ctrl and F, or you can just click search and then find. And in here you'll have an option called find in files. And I'm going to put the folder path that I had copied before in here, just like that. And now I'm just going to search for the province number that I located before, which was 203. So I'm going to type it in here, and I'm going to click on Find All. And as you can see in here, we now have a lot of results, but the closest one that we have is either Costa Rica or Bermuda. So what's Costa Rica about? Well, if we take a look here, we see that it's not really 203, it's 2203. So that's not what we want. So obviously we need to go to the Bermuda file. Here it is. So this is all the pop information for Bermuda. How many clergymen they have, how many artisans, and most importantly, their culture and religion. So now that I have located the file where the province is located, where I want to put my new culture in, I need to copy this file into my new mod. Don't actually make any changes in here, because that will make changes to the base game, and we don't want that. I'm going to right click in here, and I'm going to click the option to open containing folder in Explorer. And what this will do, it will open the folder with the file selected. So I'm now going to take this file, copy, and I'm going to copy it into my mod in here where it is empty, and I'm going to open it in Notepad++. I'm going to close the old file, and now we can make our changes. So I want the farmers on Bermuda to be sponges. So let's find the farmers, here they are. And instead of British, we're going to make them sponges, right? So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in here. Please make sure that you are applying the subculture, not the cultural group, because that will not work. Apply only the subculture in these pop files. Now, obviously you can make other pop types sponges as well, or whatever culture you created, but this is as far as I'm going to go in this lesson. I'm going to save this file, and now we have sponges in Bermuda. Very good for us. The next thing that I want to do is to create localization for our new culture. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's go ahead and create localization for our new culture. Now, in this case, it might seem a bit weird to create localization since we already have sponges. And I actually could have named it like this, sponges in capital letters, and then it would appear properly. But it's always a good idea to create separate localization, because then if you want to make any changes, you don't actually have to edit the code, right? And then I can only change the name in the localization file, and I don't mess up any code that then I have to maybe change in a lot of files. So don't use these files for localization, always use a dedicated localization file. Right, so let's go ahead into our new mod, go to the localization folder and open our new culture's localization file that we created in step number 2. I'm going to open this in Notepad++. Great. And in here, we're just going to have to make some changes. So the first thing that I'm going to do in this file, I'm going to clean it up because we don't need all of the localization that this file currently has. So I'm going to leave the first line as is, and I'm just going to delete everything below the second line. I'm going to drag everything down. I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm just going to remove it like that. Excellent. First of all, we need to localize our culture group. So this is bikini bottomers. So let's put it in here like that. And we also need to localize our subculture, sponges. So I'm going to put them in a new line like that. Right, so in order to create this localization, first of all, we have the code, right? So this is the code. And then we have the actual localization. So we will call it bikini bottomers. Now, everything that comes up after this semicolon is meant for other languages. If you don't have other languages, you can just remove everything after this semicolon up to this X, and there your localization is finished. So I'm going to do the same thing for the sponges. So I'm going to call it sponges, and I'm just going to copy this last entry just like that. And that's it. Our localization is finished, and we can proceed to the next step in our lesson, which is to test this thing in game and see if it works. All right, so I'm going to start the launcher. I'm going to select my new cultures mod, and let's go into the game and see how it works. All right, so we're here in the game. Now we know that we've positioned our new culture in Bermuda. So let's click on Bermuda. And we now see that we have Afro-Caribbean, we have some British, and we also have some sponges in here. So here we are. And if we were to look at this in the population screen, then we also see our 31% of sponges in Bermuda. All right, so that is all you need to know about creating cultures in Victoria 2. Now there is an extra syntax portion to this lesson where I will talk about a couple more things related to cultures. So stay around for that if you want to find out more. If not, that is totally fine. Go ahead, create your new cultures, go crazy. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, please give it a like so that others can see it and learn how to create cultures in Victoria 2. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye. Hello everybody, and welcome to the extra syntax section of this lesson. We're going to be learning in this section how to make our new culture an accepted culture for a country in the game. So right now we do have the sponges culture, but they're not an accepted culture in the British Empire, which I have to say is ridiculous because, come on, sponges, British Empire, doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead and fix that. We will have to modify our mod a little bit. And what we need to do is to first of all copy some files into the history folder. So I will go to history, countries. Of course, I will have to create this folder in our mod as well. So let's do that. And I'm going to find the United Kingdom file in here. I think it's called English. So let's try to find that. ENG, okay, United Kingdom. Very good. I'm going to copy this file into my mod, just like this. And when I open this file, you see that we have a couple of things here. First of all, we have primary culture, which is the British culture. And we also have another culture. So these are the accepted cultures in this country. Now, obviously I can make sponges the primary culture, but let's not do that just yet. We will make them an accepted culture. And to do that, I'm just going to copy this line. I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm just going to put my sponges in here. And now sponges are an accepted culture along with Anglo-Canadians in the British Empire. Now let's just go into the game and make sure that it works. All right, so if we take a look at our diplomacy screen, we now see that we have sponges as accepted cultures in the British Empire. Very good. All right, so this is all you need to know about cultures in Victoria 2. Hopefully everything worked out for you. If not, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to help you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.